Hello, folks. If you are working on research, AI research, or any other research for that matter, you are in the right place. Today, I'm going to explain you how these paradigms are useful in the research. So now, if you are working on a research topic, you probably are thinking, why do I care about ontology and epistemology, and what are these really? And if they are from philosophy, how do they really relate to my research? So these are actually paradigms, and paradigms mean broad set of beliefs, a worldview that guides your research, right? So we need to understand what these paradigms are, and they are useful, and they will guide you in how you conduct the research. The terminology can be quite confusing, and it's hard to understand how they all relate to each other. I'm going to explain it very well in a structured fashion. Before we move on, please don't forget to like and subscribe so that I can make more videos like this. So let's start with ontology. So ontology is a study of reality or being. So the question here is what exists? And when you say it exists, does it really exist? What is the nature of reality? Does a single objective reality exist? Or it's in a combination of multiple subjective realities? What you understand exists is it same thing as what I think. Somebody might think aliens exist, but I may not agree. There are multiple ways of thinking about this ontology. One of them is realism, and realism assumes or holds that an objective absolute truth and reality exist independently of human perception or belief. So, what that means is, irrespective of what you think or what somebody else thinks, the reality exists. So, we know that Earth exists, that's a fact. So, in this case, it doesn't matter what one person thinks, it's a hard reality. Other than the flat earthers, they might believe Earth is flat, but at least they believe that Earth exists. Now, whether it's flat or not, that will come under relativism. The other ontological approach is relativism. Now, relativism assumes that reality is actively constructed. There's no single reality, but it is actually constructed based on people's experiences, the frameworks, and many other factors. It could be different factors. But there are multiple realities, and by understanding those reality, you construct what the reality is. It's a very interesting concept, but it really is very relevant to the research, and it's going to determine how you approach your research. Let's take another example. In one culture, you may call some set of rights as fundamental rights, whereas in another culture, it may be totally different ones. In one culture or one set of people, something might be considered as good manners, versus another setting, it might be considered as bad manners. So there's no one single reality, but it's really understood from the perspective of that culture, or perspective of the framework you are using, or a situation you are using. But if you compare that to reality or realism, there is an absolute truth. That's what realism assumes. Now, epistemology is a way of studying that truth, right? What is the best way to know that reality? Now, let's take a look at other paradigm that's called epistemology. So, for your research, ontology and epistemology are the two aspects, right? That you need to pay attention, and then we'll come to the third one in a minute. Epistemology is a study of knowledge. The question here is, what is the best way to know the reality? So, for example, if there's a absolute reality, how do you know about it? Probably absolute reality is much easier to know because there is some hard evidence for it. But when there is a relativist kind of reality, it may be a different approach that we need to follow. Other questions that are asked here are, what counts as valid knowledge? Is this something called as knowledge? And how do we gain that knowledge? Can we measure that knowledge? How it can be measured and interpreted? These are all questions that come under epistemology. The reason we need to know this is, depending on the type of research you are doing, you may be trying to prove something as a hard fact. You would be taking a realist's approach, and the method to study that will be different. Now we'll take a look at different ways of studying available under epistemology. Let's say you are doing sociology or study of culture or social sciences or social media, for example. Anything that is debatable as a fixed reality. Here we actually deal with positivism, interpretivism, and pragmatism. So there are these three ways of thinking about it. Now, positivism focuses on objective, measurable data, right? So we are really focused on what can be measured from observable phenomena. Whereas interpretivism looks at it through different lenses, understanding that social phenomena through the meaning, interpretation, experiences of the people involved, rather than through objective measurements alone. So you might ask, different questions. Now, if you're trying to measure, let's say, happiness index of a country, there's no one thermometer that is going to tell you that, and it's going to be subjective. So this paradigm might be useful there. The third one is pragmatism. Now, this is actually a mix and match of both positivism and interpretivism. This offers a flexible problem-solving approach that combines multiple methods. You might be working on a research where you probably need mix of both of these, because some part of that research you are trying to establish as a hard fact, while others you might be establishing business benefits, for example, or technical benefits, right? So debatable. In that case, you might take pragmatism as an approach. Now, the third aspect of this is methodology. So your choice of ontology and epistemology that applies to your research is going to determine what methodology you follow. So if you are more a realist, that's basically following realism, and you believe that reality exists independent of different beliefs and what people think. For example, gravity exists. It's an objectively established fact. You cannot prove that gravity does not exist. It is proven scientifically, and there's no second opinion about it. In that case, you will follow positivism. This will allow you to measure that. The methodology that you're going to follow in this case is quantitative, because quantitative asks questions or measurement that has numeric answers or plus minus or yes or no answers, which you can measure. For example, if you're trying to see what is the temperature today, you're going to be able to measure that. Or if you say what is the financial status of a person, you can ask about what is the income and what is the saving that person has, and you can come to a conclusion. Whereas the other approach is relativism. Now, relativism actually assumes that reality is not one, right? So you need to take into account what is the context of that reality, or what is the context of situation, framework, culture, perspectives, etc. There's no single reality. In this case, interpretivism is a useful epistemology, because what you're going to do is you are probably going to study it not from numbers perspective, but understanding different qualitative aspects of it. So you can use interpretivism, for example, in a situation, in a research where you are trying to determine if a city is pleasant. Now, how do you do that, and how do you determine if city is pleasant? There are many aspects of it. For example, what are different tourist spots are available, what kind of people live there, what are their hobbies. You might ask about what's the weather there. So many different aspects, and that is kind of going to lead to a qualitative study where you are going to ask maybe open-ended questions. You probably will interview the subjects and find an example of this is if your research is tourism and you are trying to determine if the city is comfortable or pleasant, There's no one objective criteria to determine if a city is pleasant. So you might have to study, people who are visiting. What do they find interesting there? Are there a lot of tourist spots? Is there a lot of cultural aspect to it? Libraries? What kind of music programs are happening? So basically, you might do some in-depth interviews, or you might do surveys that ask qualitative questions. Then the third one is a mix of both. It's pragmatism. So here, basically, the assumption is reality is seen as what works at that time rather than absolute reality. And if you are following the pragmatism approach, the type of methodology you're going to use is mixed quantitative and qualitative. So you're going to study the qualitative aspects of it by asking open-ended questions, surveys, but also you're going to collect the quantitative data with numbers. Going back to that tourism study, you might, in addition to asking what makes that city pleasant from qualitative aspect, you might measure the weather. What is the humidity? What is the average temperature? Does it rain there? When does it rain? That kind of questions. And so that is actually following a pragmatism with the mixed qualitative and quantitative methodology. Now there are, this is not just a small list. There are many more aspects and many more epistemology approaches are there. If you are a student of philosophy, sociology, or similar areas, you should probably study all of these ones I'm showing here and maybe more. There are many, many ontologies and epistemologies, but the ones I covered in detail in this video are the most common and apply to your research. Now let's take a look at a couple of more epistemology approaches which are common. Is another one. Social constructivism or just constructivism is another one. And then objectivism, actually, again, you use quantitative methodology. For constructivism, you use qualitative methodology. I hope you now understand these topics better. If you think this video is useful, please let me know, like and subscribe and put a comment so I can make more of these videos. If you are interested in certain topic, let me know and I can make videos related to that topic. Thank you so much.